It is the Shutdown Inning Podcast. We are back for episode 12. Stephen Rissotto here with Tylor Hall. Tyler, how you doing? How was your week?
Hey, everybody. Doing pretty well. For those that listened last week, I had a little work trip this week, and despite Steven trying to jinx me, my baggage made it with me to both to my destination and on the way home. So no lost luggage. So that was well. Threw a nice, mostly my wife, but we threw a nice surprise 70th birthday party for my mother-in-law last night that went well. She was legitimately surprised. So thank you to everyone that kept the secret. But yeah, it was a great time. How about you? What are you up to this week, man?
It was good. I mean, happy, obviously, belated birthday to your mother-in-law. That's great. Yeah, this week was, I'm still off of, for those that don't know, I go to San Francisco State, and this has been the longest winter break of my life. I feel like it's never ending. I need to do some. I need to go back to school because I'm getting
Yeah, I
stir
mean,
crazy.
I had to remind Steven that yesterday was
Yeah.
or on Friday. He thought Friday was Saturday. He's just stuck in Saturday mode right now.
Yeah, I went all day on Friday thinking that it was Saturday. And it's my days are mixed up, but I need to get back. Next week I have a lot of things going on, so I'm excited about that. Got a few days
Nice,
circled to where I actually will be productive. So I am pumped
nice.
about that. I saw in your trip that you did, because we talked when our last podcast was over, you mentioned that you were going to try and go see Frank Sinatra's grave. You ended up going. I mean,
Yeah,
that's pretty
saw
cool.
saw the chairman of the board, had to go pay my respects. I'm a big Frank fan. I grew up, my dad would play his stuff around the house all the time. So it was kind of cool to see. Sonny Bono's also in the same cemetery, so we had the time to kill, so we said what's up to Sonny too. But the main reason we went over there was to see Frank, so that was pretty cool to pay the respects. We left a dime on his headstone because he said he always carried $1 in dimes in case he ever needed to make a phone call. So we left him a dime so he can make a call.
That's great. And my grandpa, we always leave quarters at his burial site in South San Francisco, because he would always ask, anybody got any quarters? So every time we go, we leave quarters. And he's about 100 yards away from Joe DiMaggio, the Yankee
Nice.
Clipper. And his is like one of the big structures, and they have
Mm-hmm.
like his bats, not his bats, but baseball
He,
bats on there, hats, gloves.
yeah,
Uh,
people leave stuff for
mhm.
him. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's pretty
someone had
cool.
left like a little mini like airplane bottle of Jack Daniels for Frank because he was obviously a big Jack Daniels fan. And so yeah, that was cool. It was nice to kind of wrap up the trip with something, of personal interest and not just a work trip. But yeah, so glad
Yeah.
to be home though. And as we mentioned last week, we're even a week closer to spring training now, to actually
Mhm.
having baseball to talk about and not just moves. So that'll be fun.
Yep. And obviously the NFL is happening right now too. Everybody's rooting for the 49ers and kind of our neck of the woods. But once football is over, baseball, that's kind of baseball's time to shine. I know basketball's still
Yeah.
happening too, but spring training, I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
pitchers and catchers reporting, it's great.
yeah, I mean, Super Bowl is February 12th. So, I mean, usually right around Valentine's Day is when pitchers and catchers have to report. So, it's literally going to be to use a football pun, it's literally going to be a handoff to baseball season right after football's over.
And even more literal, the Super Bowl's in Arizona.
Very,
So if we're
wow.
talking Cactus League,
At
there's a
the
little bit of that.
at the end of the Super Bowl, they should like have a passing of the guard from Roger Goodell to Rob
Manfred.
Manfred at the 50-yard line after they hand out the Lombardi trophy.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much I want the commissioners involved in something like
Yeah.
that, but whatever. Yeah, there's been some baseball news. I know we jotted down. This is probably going to be a shorter episode compared to the other ones, because not a lot has happened, but we did see a trade go down. The Marlins actually acquired Luis Arraez, who is from the Minnesota Twins. For those that don't know, Arraez mainly played first base and second base, I believe, last year with the Twins, and he's a big contact hitter. And
Won the AL batting champ.
that's right. I knew I was leaving something off. He's an unbelievable bat to ball guy. Had a 130 OPS last year, was the batting champ, won a Silver Slugger. And he's going to Miami to play second base. The Twins are getting Pablo Lopez and a few prospects. I mean, was there any reaction to something like this trade happening in the middle of January?
Yeah, I mean, I knew Lopez was going to probably get moved at some point. I was surprised that he was the one with prospects attached to him and not the other way around. I feel like the Twins really won that deal because Arraez, he doesn't really do. I mean, he's a batting champion, so he's going to get on base, but he doesn't really do much besides that. His defense is a little suspect. He doesn't really hit for a lot of power. He doesn't really have speed, so he's kind of like a one-dimensional guy. Um, and so, when I saw it was Arraez and Lopez, I was like, okay, I wonder who's going with Arraez to Miami. And I think that one of the prospects with Lopez was it a top, like, was it like the Marlins fifth?
It was like fifth or sixth, yeah.
Yeah, fifth or sixth highly rated prospect. So I was like, wow, the Twins, the Twins have had a solid last couple of weeks by bringing Correa back and now getting Lopez. Um, Lopez and another a little bit of reinforcements on the farm. The Marlins are, it's always hard to kind of figure out what the Marlins are doing, and I honestly don't know what they saw in this trade, but that was my reaction. I couldn't believe that they got more than that.
They got fleeced. 100% they
Yeah,
got fleeced. And like I know Lopez has kind of struggled with health the past couple of years, but and also the Marlins have like historically the last few years they've had kind of a wealth of young pitching that they've been kind of lucky with, but it's been like unsustainable young pitching. Like the only one that's kind of stayed and has been somewhat consistent is Alcantara. I know there was a point where Trevor Richards or Rogers, I think Trevor
Rogers.
Richards, yeah, Rogers was like third in Rookie of the Year voting, and I think he struggled with inconsistency and health. Pablo Lopez has struggled with health. A lot of people think that this trade should have happened maybe a few years ago, but I do think it was a bit of I don't know what the Marlins are doing either. Because like this move is going to put Arraez at second base and Jazz Chisholm Jr., their really electric young player. He's going to be moved to center field. And then they're potentially in agreement with Yuli Gurriel on a contract. He's going to play first. So I was reading a tweet and it was funny because they said that you're going to have a first baseman play second in Arias. You're going to have a second baseman play short in Joey Wendell at short, and a second baseman playing third with Gene Segura at third, and then a second baseman playing center field with Chisholm in center.
Yeah, it's yeah, like I said, Marlins getting to Marlins, I guess, because they're just like, whatever, we'll get these guys and we'll just put a glove on them and put them, get in where you can fit in, I guess. And to be honest, I think the move to, I know we'll get into position changes a little bit, but I think Jazz moving to center kind of hurts his value. I think a lot of his bat and everything, it was because as a second baseman that was above average, but he's also been hurt a lot, so maybe moving to the outfield will keep him a little fresher. We'll see, but
yeah, if you could get a guy to buy into something like this, like that's the bottom line for me. I
yeah,
think
I mean
he's athletic enough to do it.
yeah, I mean he seems bought in. I think he already said that he's gonna start working in center field now, and he plans on winning a Gold Glove there. So I hope he stays healthy. He's a fun guy. He's fun to watch, and he's entertaining. He's as I think as a baseball fan, he's someone who you should be entertained and hope can stay on the field. But yeah, the Marlins as a whole, I mean, they did, to kind of quickly tap into another subject we had, they did sign Johnny Cueto as well. And I think, as far as a player being made for a city, I feel like just Cueto in Miami just makes so much sense on so many levels. And so, I'm a Cueto fan. I think a lot, I don't know many people that don't like Johnny Cueto. And so, it's cool that he's, still going. He had a really solid year for the White Sox last year. And so at least, I guess he's replacing Lopez in a sense down in Miami.
Yeah, I thought that Cueto was a good fit for a lot of teams. I'm shocked that it kind of took him this long to get signed, but Miami's a great place for him. It's a pitcher's park. He could, he you're right. He did pitch really well last year for the White Sox, and he was kind of their savior in a lot of ways when Lucas Giolito kind of was giving up earned runs left and right. They had Dylan Cease who was gonna, do really well and did really well. But Cueto was kind of like the stapler to keep the paper still. I don't know if that's a good analogy for that White Sox bullpen because they're just so unhealthy just as a team last year. And for
Yeah.
them to rely on Cueto was big. But like the Marlins are just so good with the Latin culture down there that they've built. They've put an emphasis on it. A lot of their fans that go to the games are of the Latin descent, and they connect. They honestly do an unbelievable job at building a roster that looks like the city. And I remember hearing Derek Jeter mention that, not just on the field, but I think the way they build the front office is similar to that, and bringing in diversity and different people into their organization. We've yet to see Kim Ng kind of make that big move as GM. I know the Marlins have not been competitive um, enough to maybe where they could spend more money, but it'd be interesting to see how this works. But no, I'm a big fan of Cueto. He's just a finesse guy, and I know we mentioned very slightly guys that could pitch for a long time, and like him pitching into his 40s would not surprise me at all because he keeps hitters off balance. I think he could do it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he could shimmy as long as he wants. I think, he's not all, I think he knows how to pitch. He kind of, as we talked about a little while ago, but he knows the art of pitching. He knows it's not just I'm going to throw as hard as I can and get it past you. And those, if you want to pitch for a long time, for the most part, you have your like Nolan Ryans and your Justin Verlanders throwing gas into their 40s, but for the most part, those guys that pitch, up there in age, it's because they know how to, keep a hitter on their toes and how to, just work. Sometimes even just adding new little slivers to their arsenal of what they can do to throw a hitter off. And, it's funny because like Cueto's he's kind of like the pitcher's version of McCutchen for me. I feel like he's
Mhm.
always having fun out there. He looks like he's enjoying playing. So, as long as he's having fun and he can, put up some decent numbers, I hope he can stick around for a long time.
And he makes us laugh. Like non-pitching Johnny Cueto is like equally as great. Like we see the instant, like if whenever he retires and decides that like it's enough for him, we're not going to see the last of him. Like we all
No.
follow him on social media. We all see him riding the horses, and he during when they introduced him, he walked down from center field with music playing in the background, walked on the mound with the Dominican Republic flag on his back, started dancing on the mound. I mean,
Yeah.
and the media is just sitting there waiting for him to like come and chat with them. Johnny Cueto is just an amazing personality.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember when he posted the picture of just like his dead horse just lying there? I think he ended up deleting it, but it was like,
Yeah.
oh, Johnny Cueto's horse died, but he posted a picture of it. And he cooks like he seems to be like a really good cook in the Dominican Republic. So he
Yeah. I
just
mean,
everything about him.
he's got, and I think he had a version of it. I'm guessing he has multiples, but I know like in the Dominican, he has like basically a van that's all speakers. And so he'll like just like post videos of that, just blasting music. And I think that's what was playing. He had a very similar type of setup that was playing the music at the Marlins Stadium when he was walking in with the Dominican flag. And so yeah, he's just a fun guy. He's a little quirky, which is always something I enjoy. And so
And for the
you know,
most part, like he's gonna stay healthy. Like he missed the time with the Tommy John, but like other than that, I can't think of a time like in besides when he hurt himself in the division series in 2012, which Reds fans always turn to in that series against the
yeah,
Giants. Um, like I can't think of a time where he's ever like struggled with health. Like
yeah,
he's so durable, and he pitched like about 160 innings last year, and for today's standards, that's really good, especially for a guy that came up mid-year or maybe close to mid-year. So
yeah,
can't wait to see his impact in Miami.
yeah. As Johnny Cueto is known to say, bueno.
Bueno. Yeah, of course. And we mentioned Jazz moving to the outfield, and it got us thinking about like other major position changes in baseball. And this is difficult because like there's a lot of the subtle ones where it's like a guy moving from shortstop to second base. That's kind of
Mm,
like a natural progression. Maybe a third baseman moving across the diamond to first. Tyler and I have talked about Rafael Devers in that context before, but can you think of any like solid like major position player changes in terms of positions like that? Because this is a major one. Chisholm to the outfield after only playing the infield.
yeah, I mean one that I first remember was Craig Biggio moving from catcher to second base. One of the first games I actually remember like going to the ballpark for it was the early 90s. And I had an older cousin who was maybe 5 or 6 years older than me. And he was, it was a Giants Astros game. And he was like, oh, their catcher, Craig Biggio, is supposed to be really good. And so like I saw Biggio catch, and I think they made a great call. Obviously, he ended up having a Hall of Fame career, but who knows how his career goes and how his body holds up if he stays behind the dish. Move him out to second, and he ends up having a 3,000 hit Hall of Fame career. And so that's one that jumps out to me. Like you said, there's a lot of shortstops moving to third and whatnot. I think another one you could talk about is like Rick Ankiel, where he wasn't able to figure it out on the mound, so he played outfield for a while. What about you? What any that jump out? He's reaching for the bookshelf. What are we going with?
You dropped Rick Ankiel, so I had to. Oh
Okay.
shoot, it's getting lost in the Golden Gate Bridge, but darn it! No, okay. But the Rick Ankiel, there it is.
There we go. The phenomenon.
I got something on here for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Rick Ankiel. I'll go with the reverse Rick or the Rick Ankiel of the late teens, early 20s. Babe Ruth made the change from pitcher to the outfield. That's the one that I was teasing you with before, but like that's probably the most famous one in terms of impact. Like Babe Ruth was one of the best pitchers in baseball history up until him being moved to the outfield. But I also think like, Gary Sheffield, he's another one that just popped into my mind. I know he came up as a shortstop, was drafted as a shortstop.
Played a little third even, I think.
Yeah, played a little third, ended up sticking in right field and left field. But from time to time you do see like outfielders come in and play first base. I know like at the end of Matt Holliday's career, the Yankees were trying to do something along those lines, which was weird. But I think Jeter, I think Jeter and A-Rod, Jeter never changed positions. You could argue maybe he should have, but A-Rod was in his prime when he moved to third base. And that was like such a big deal because he was still a very good defender. And him moving to third instead of Jeter was a little bit interesting, but Jeter, of course, was the captain.
It's the captain team of the Yankees. Yeah.
Yeah. You couldn't move him. So, that's another one. And there's another one that I thought of. I remember when Freddie Freeman got hurt with the Braves and they were thinking of having him come back as a third baseman. Just think about that. Freddie Freeman as a third baseman.
Wow.
I think he only played a few games there, but it's fun to look at. I mean, we were talking about Pujols. He's a guy that played in different positions. So,
yeah, he came up as like a third baseman outfielder. You got Cabrera's changed positions a little bit. Obviously, Ripken did that kind of standard shortstop to third move.
Yeah. But infield to outfield is one that you don't normally see like that often. Like Trey Turner did it for, I think, one season in Washington. But D. Gordon made the move, and he kind of fell off, to be honest. Fell off the face of the earth. He's now kind of a role player.
Yeah, because usually the moves are because you're getting old and you can't cover as much ground. So moving to the outfield would be kind of opposite of that logic. So yeah, you don't see it too often. Yeah. And also, I think it's just a little less common nowadays in general, just because some guys you just know can play 3 or 4 positions. So if a guy goes out to center field for a couple games that normally plays short or second or whatever, it's not really that big of news. Cody Bellinger kind of comes to mind where, sometimes
that's a good one.
Play first and then he's playing like Gold Glove center field the next day. It's like, okay.
That's a great example. Bellinger is the one that I wasn't thinking of. Came up as a first baseman and then became an elite outfielder. That's a great example. Bellinger out there. I was thinking Dodgers too, because I realized that like you're not going to be able to move like your Mike Moustakas and Max Muncy's to second base anymore, because it's like a different position now than what it was even a few months ago with the shift being kind of regulated. I don't want to say banned because we're still going to see guys move over a few steps or whatnot, but regulated. But you can't sneak anybody through there anymore, I guess.
Yeah, they're going to have to just stick at first base and not move a lot if that's their profile.
Yeah, but I guess catchers is like the common one, like you mentioned, Biggio. One guy I talked to on RizzoCast, Miles Schroeder, was a minor leaguer with the Giants, and I was looking at like his defense and like where he's played, and he's got like 100 innings at hundreds of innings at first, hundreds of innings at second, 300 innings at short, 300 innings at third, 300 in left, 300 in right, 300 behind the
Wow.
plate, and he never moved off catching through that entire time. So just think about like when you're in the minor leagues and like you're a catcher, you either stick at the position or you move off of it. And like this guy like moved off but then came back, moved off, came back, and you just don't see it nowadays. So
Yeah, I believe wasn't Kenley Jansen a catcher originally? They moved him
mhm.
to pitcher. That's worked out pretty well for him.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Uh,
Bill, not Billy, crap, what's his name? The pitcher for the Dodgers, former reliever, Chris Hatcher, was
uh,
also a catcher. I believe he even made it to the big leagues as a catcher with the Marlins. We're seeing that more often too. Like with
yeah,
the
I mean,
amount of like technology these guys have, like the
yeah,
transition to pitching, like the one guy the Giants just signed, Ronald Guzman, working out
yeah.
as a pitcher. So
Yeah, I mean, then you got Pablo Sandoval. He came up as a catcher, ended as a pitcher as well.
that's right.
uh, but yeah, it's obviously these guys are all very gifted, talented athletes. So when they move, it's not completely shocking, but especially at the big league level, being able to, play multiple positions at a big league level or make a switch after you've played a position for almost your whole life is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Have you seen the video of Don Mattingly playing third base?
I have, but it's been a long time.
There's like a little slow roller and he barehanded it and it looked weird because he's throwing like opposite.
Yeah.
So that's a when are we gonna see a left-handed catcher? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, it's not very common. Um,
I think it
yeah.
used to happen like in the dead ball era, but we have not seen it regularly. I think only in like an emergency instance have we seen it since like the 80s or 70s. But
Yeah.
um I mean, what would be the like I guess throwing to third would be easier? No? Harder? I don't know. I'd have to
I
look
mean, it
into it.
really all depends if righty or lefty's hitting.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And they don't make too many left-handed catching gloves.
Yeah. Probably be pretty rough.
Yeah, exactly. Anyways, we thought that would be a fun subject to kind of toggle a little bit. And if you have any other like position changes, let us know. Go tag us and reply to this podcast. And we might have forgotten a lot of people. I know we have, but a fun topic nonetheless. Uh, Aroldis Chapman is back in baseball, and he has signed a 1 year deal with the. I don't have. I almost said
with
Marlins
with the Kansas City Royals.
with the Kansas City Royals, a 1 year deal, and I mean a guy that still throws hard. He's again another guy that's struggled with off the field stuff recently. He left the
Hmm.
Yankees during their postseason run. He didn't show up to a workout, and they didn't see him since. And because I think he was left off the roster, if I'm not mistaken, and he just didn't show up the rest of the way. But I mean, yeah, the Royals obviously not in a competitive mode right now. But Aroldis Chapman, he's been around for a while. He's kind of that like first premier flamethrower of that era.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he was kind of the first guy that would throw, triple digits like consistently to where it wasn't like, headlines on like Sports Center that this guy was throwing 100 every night. As you mentioned, I think, he's had some off the field issues previous to this last postseason, and he kind of, found his way back in. After I'm a little surprised he got a deal because, trust in the clubhouse is usually a big thing. And if he's going to start no showing on a playoff team, what's he going to do on on any team really, but a team that's maybe not going to be as competitive. So, hopefully, for his sake, he can go in and earn the trust of his teammates. Like you said, I think it's kind of a low risk, high reward
Mm-hmm.
potentially for the Royals because they're not, him going AWOL isn't going to derail their season because their season may never be on the rails anyway. And but if he stays healthy, it's one of those 1 year probably prove it deals. So they could flip him at the deadline and get a nice prospect or something to help kind of build towards their future potentially.
Yeah,
So
that's a good point. And just to clarify, they were debating whether they wanted to carry him on the roster
and then he
for
made the
the
decision for them.
yeah, basically. So he basically made the decision for them, but I mean he's a very controversial figure, and he's gone through some domestic violence allegations, and but no, he was the guy that I always thought would be like, oh, he's going to be a Hall of Famer one day, and never
It
really
always,
happened. I mean, I remember him, like when I think of him, I think of him with the Chicago Cubs,
yep.
pitching to Rajay Davis in Game 7 of the. He's 34 years old, and yeah, no, I think it wouldn't be a stretch to see Kansas City maybe ship him off at the deadline. I mean, last season, I'm looking at it now, 33 games, a 4.46 ERA. He finished 19 games, and really, he finished 19 games, but he only got 9 saves. So that tells you that he didn't close out a lot of close games. More than half
Yeah.
of the games that he closed were not save situations. So that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it just sucks when you see a guy who has like all the potential in the world kind of derail his own, career to an extent where it's not going to end up anywhere near where a lot of people thought it would be.
Yeah, still striking out over. Oh my God, his strikeout per nine during his career is crazy. 14.7 through his career. Um, and last year was a career low with 10.7. Um, and he was also walking a career high at 6.9 walks per 9 innings. So that's not good either. And his career high for a season, I have to look at this because I'm intrigued, for strikeouts per nine, was 17.7 in 54 innings in 2014 with the Reds.
That is
17
nuts.
guys per nine.
Basically 2 strikeouts an inning almost.
That is absurd. That's like Farhan Zaidi. Like we always see him get guys, like get young relievers and bring them into the Giants organization. We look and why is he bringing this guy in? Then they have like a 15 Ks per nine in Double A. This guy's
Yeah.
doing it in the American League Central, with a lot of hitters parks there. Um, but yeah, Chapman going to Kansas City. Um, yeah, I mean, not
Yeah.
a lot happening in
Yeah, I mean,
baseball.
that's about all the excitement we had this week.
I mean, I guess we could talk about Duvall for a second. Adam Duvall is going to, um, I know
to
Fam's going to the Mets. Duvall is going to the, where's he going?
to the Red Sox.
To the Red Sox. That's right. That's a
So,
good place for him. Got a
yeah, he
short
could
left
do some
field.
yeah, he could do some damage over the monster for sure. Um, you know, former Giant for those Giants fans that are listening. So, it'll be hopefully a good situation for him. The Red Sox, like we've talked about on a few episodes, are just kind of an interesting team. Like, what are they do? Are they trying to win? Or are they trying to
Mm.
just kind of coast for a little while and figure out what their future identity is? It's kind of hard to tell. And so, Duvall's a guy they can throw out there. He'll probably platoon, I would imagine. If he's playing every day for you, it's probably not a good thing.
I saw
No
somewhere that
offense,
their
but
shortstop is going to be Kike Hernandez.
oh man.
So, I mean, and speaking of position changes, Duvall is another great example because with the Giants organization, Duvall was primarily a third baseman in the minor leagues, played some
Yeah.
first too, and like he was heavier than what he is now. And then I think he got a lot stronger, lost a little weight, and just became a Gold Glove outfielder with the Reds, which was kind of an interesting transition. But yeah, Adam Duvall, and then Tommy Pham, who we know from the slap
Yeah.
of Jock Peterson going to the Mets, and the Mets really never spent that money that was supposed to go to Correa. Not that
Yeah.
they needed Correa or needed to spend
Well, I
more money.
mean, yeah, I mean, you could argue they didn't need to spend more money on Correa already because they were already setting records for payroll.
Yeah. uh,
So, but yeah, I mean, Fam to the Mets, I think he's a good fourth outfielder to have. I don't think or even if he's an everyday outfielder for you, if you have some other anchors in the lineup where you're not depending on him to be a top like 3 or 4 hitter in your lineup, which the Mets won't be, with guys like Alonso and Lindor and Nimmo. So, where he's not carrying a brunt of the load, I think he could be a solid kind of under the radar move for them. And, he'll keep the fantasy football league in line for the team as well.
Exactly. No like stale presence on the IR
Yeah,
during the
no
course of the year.
stashing.
No stashing at all, or else you're gonna get slapped. And the fact that apparently that was a few years in the making, like it boiled, or was it a few years in
That
the
he's
making, or
still, yeah, I think so. Yeah, that he like was still that upset about about Jock stashing guys on the injured list or injured reserve in football terms.
I can't wait for the regular season, and we're gonna be talking like less about this stuff and agreeing the terms with blah blah blah, and more about like, oh well, there's a bench clearing fight yesterday between the Red Sox and the Giants, and Tommy Pham went after Jock Peterson again.
Yeah.
That's gonna be so fun during the season when we have a little bit
No,
more.
I think what's fun with the balanced schedule too, to kind of fit that narrative is, every team plays every team this year. So if there's guys that don't like each other, where it used to be like, oh, well, they're in the NL West, the other guys in the, AL Central, they'll play each other like every 3 years. Who knows if they'll even be on those teams when that happens. Now what it's going to be one ballpark or another. You're going to end up playing everybody. So, it'll be, kind of interesting to see how some of those, matchups can develop and have little other storylines, like you said, that we get to talk about instead of talking about, over the hill relief pitcher signing with the Royals.
Exactly. And I think it's funny because this is the most balanced schedule that we've ever had.
Yeah.
And I think they took away what, 2 series from each park.
Well,
For
yeah.
a
So it used to be like
division.
three. Yeah, within your division, you had 3 home and 3 away series with each team, and now it's 2. So
Yeah.
essentially that frees up, 8 series a
And if
year.
I'm not mistaken, they put at least 2 of them in September, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And of course you're gonna.
Yeah, so like if you're a Giants or Dodgers fan, like I think they play in like May, and then they don't play again until like early September.
Yeah. And the Giants go to San Diego
All year.
once all year because
Oh, because
that
of Mexico
Mexico City.
City.
Mexico City. So that's gonna be that I could Mexico City game is gonna be interesting because the altitude is very
Yeah.
high in Mexico City, and the balls are gonna be flying.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think
knowing
it's even
Major League
higher
Baseball,
than it's even higher. Oh yeah, they're gonna make sure the live baseballs are on for that series. I think that's even higher than Coors Field, the
Mhm.
elevation in Mexico City. So yeah, they're gonna, the humidifier will probably be broken. The tightly wound baseballs will be in play, and we'll probably end up seeing a lot of home runs in that series for sure.
I wonder how far of a flight that is from, I guess maybe San Diego. I mean, probably 3 hours, maybe. I'm not
I
looking at
mean,
a map at all, but I'll give you some time. But I also think the balanced schedule is going to help, because I know you are a big proponent of travel. Like you go on the road to watch the Giants, and that's a big thing for you. I know you were in Minnesota last year. So,
yeah.
I mean, you're going to get to see a lot more cities with this new schedule.
Yeah, it's awesome. I try to go with a buddy of mine. We try to go to a new ballpark to watch the Giants play every year, go somewhere we've never been. And so knowing that pretty much every other year they're going to have a chance to play in each stadium. So it'll really make it easy to hopefully, check them all off. Minnesota was the halfway mark for me last year. I've seen 15 teams play a home game in Major League Baseball. And so this year, the plan is to go to Toronto, so to get some international presence on my stadiums list, and so yeah, so that'll be cool. And so yeah, some of these, eventually this year I'm not going to Mexico City, but hopefully one of these, off the beaten path, one-off series locations would be really fun to see too. But
Like
it's
the
a
Field of Dreams game. That would be a cool one.
yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, it's a 5 hour and 40 minute flight from San Diego to Mexico City. So it's probably about 6.5, 7 hours from San Francisco. Um, because Mexico City is not really near the border. It's kind of in the middle of Mexico, up in the mountains. So it is a little bit of a flight where some people were like, oh, that's gonna be like a home game for the Padres, and I think technically on the schedule it is. But it's not like either team is very close by to Mexico City.
Yeah, and the 49ers played there this year, and I think that's
A lot of
that,
red. Yeah.
that's a funny thing that the Giants are going to play there too. And I remember Greg Papa, who's the radio play-by-play voice of the Niners, was saying that the altitude was killing them, and the altitude was killing a lot of people there. And um, hopefully it's not too bad, it's not too unbearable.
The
But
altitude will just be killing ERAs for Major League Baseball.
yeah, and I like mentioned like very quickly there about Major League Baseball maybe putting new baseballs in for that series. Because like
I mean,
did you see that chart that was posted about like the normal baseballs, and then like All-Star Game it spiked up with like
yeah.
and then it was like Home Run Derby spiked up, and then postseason spiked up. It was like
Yeah, it
what?
was like, this kind of independent study someone did where they were able to get balls that were in play in different ballparks or different series throughout the year, and
Field of
like
Dreams game.
yeah, fielded, and sometimes just like prime time, like Sunday night baseball, Red Sox, Yankees. Oh,
Yeah.
jumps up. And so I'm surprised that wasn't as big of a controversy as it is, because that, the players union should be pissed about that, because that toys with guys, stats and their compensation, and just on a player level, but on a competitive level, that's nuts to think about. So Major League Baseball, good job on them kind of sweeping that under the rug, because I thought that could be a bigger deal than it ended up being.
Add it to the list of everything swept under the rug by Major League Baseball
Yeah.
in their long history.
Yeah.
Anyways,
But
yeah,
we shut it down, I think.
we shut it down. We That was like the quickest immaculate inning we've ever had, and we've had 12 immaculate
Absolutely.
innings so far, and we blew it by like vintage Aroldis Chapman style, 101, 102, 103. Um, but yeah, no, hopefully that was a good, fun banter that we had, and probably gonna hopefully have a guest next week. We don't want to say too much yet. I think we want to make it a
Yeah,
surprise.
but we've got hopefully some fun guests. They're definitely on our radar, so hopefully they can come to fruition. And so hopefully they'll be on with us. So stay in the loop on who those might be, as we're able to announce those. And like I said, we're maybe 2 or 3 episodes until we have some active baseball down in Arizona and Florida to talk about. So
Can't
creeping
wait.
along, almost there.
Can't wait. Florida, Arizona means good weather, baseball, healthy
We'll have the World
battles.
Baseball Classic soon too.
Oh, yes.
That'll be fun.
I can't wait for that. Those teams are stacked. A
Yeah.
lot of the teams. So, yeah, I'm sure we'll get into the World Baseball Classic when we get closer, because that is going to be one of the highlights, I think, of the year in baseball, maybe even sports, because it's so fun. But yeah, no, yeah, Apple Podcast, Spotify, go follow the Shutdown Inning Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at shutdown_inning, and then inning, and then yeah, go check us all out. And Tyler's on Twitter at, I don't think we've plugged our personal Twitters on here before, but I'll do
No,
it
not
now.
really. Yeah,
At
I'm at that guy Tylor, Tylor. So at that guy Tylor.
And then at Steven Risotto, Rissotto, double S, double T's. Like the rice. I get that a lot. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one.
And that's what's up. Go Niners.